You read a text, just one word. Sure, that's it. No emoji, no explanation, nothing. And somehow, 3 hours later, you're still thinking about it. Were they annoyed? Did you say something wrong? Did something change? Meanwhile, they're probably eating dinner, watching TV, or sleeping. But your mind is building an entire investigation around a single word. If that sounds familiar, this video might explain something you've been struggling with for years, because the problem may not be that you're unaware. The problem may be that you're too aware, and that changes everything. Most people walk through life noticing what's obvious. You notice what's hidden, the pause before someone answers, the fake smile, the shift in someone's energy, the message they almost sent, the emotion behind the words, the tension nobody talks about. You pick up signals that most people miss, and for a while that feels like a gift. People call you perceptive, thoughtful, wise, self-aware. But what they don't see is what happens when you're alone, because awareness has a side effect. The more you notice, the harder it becomes to switch off. Think about the last time you couldn't stop thinking. Maybe it was after a conversation. Maybe someone sounded different. Maybe they seemed distant. Maybe nothing actually happened at all, but your brain grabbed onto it. You replayed the conversation, then replayed it again, then started analyzing your analysis. At some point, you weren't thinking about reality anymore. You were thinking about your thoughts about reality, and that's where highly aware people often get trapped. Not in life, in interpretation. Here's something strange. Imagine two people walking into the same room. One person notices a group of people talking. The other person notices who isn't talking. One person notices a smile. The other notices how quickly it disappeared. One person hears the words. The other hears the hesitation behind them. Which person has the advantage? At first glance, it seems obvious. The second person. The more aware person. The person who sees more. But there's a hidden cost. Because every detail you notice becomes another thing your brain has to process. Another possibility. Another question. Another uncertainty. And eventually awareness stops feeling like a flashlight. It starts feeling like noise. Lots of people think intelligence makes life easier. In some ways it does. But intelligence and awareness create a unique problem. They allow you to see multiple versions of reality at the same time. Most people see one explanation. You see 10. Maybe they ignored your text because they're busy. Maybe they're upset. Maybe they're stressed. Maybe they're losing interest. Maybe you're overthinking. Maybe you're not. Suddenly a simple situation becomes a maze of possibilities. And the strange thing is that every possibility feels believable. So your mind keeps searching. Looking for certainty, looking for proof, looking for the answer. But certainty rarely arrives, because life doesn't work that way. In fact, psychologists have found something interesting. The human brain dislikes uncertainty more than almost anything else. Your brain would often rather have a bad answer than no answer at all. Why? Because uncertainty feels unsafe. Your ancestors didn't survive by being comfortable with uncertainty. If they heard movement in the bushes, they couldn't sit there analyzing every possibility. They needed a conclusion, fast. That instinct still exists inside you. Except today, the bushes have been replaced by text messages, relationships, careers, and social situations. And for highly aware people, uncertainty is everywhere. You notice things other people ignore. You detect possibilities other people never consider. And because you see more possibilities, you experience more uncertainty. That's why awareness and anxiety often travel together. Not because awareness is bad, because awareness constantly exposes you to things that have no clear answer. But here's where most people misunderstand the problem. The issue isn't awareness, the issue is what you do with it. Imagine standing on a bridge above a highway. Cars pass underneath, hundreds of them. Now imagine every car is a thought, a memory, a fear, a possibility, a prediction. Most people think awareness means following every car, investigating every thought, analyzing every feeling, chasing every possibility. But that's not awareness, that's attachment. True awareness is standing on the bridge and watching. You see the cars, but you don't get inside every single one. Think about how many thoughts enter your mind every day. Thousands. Most are repetitive. Many are inaccurate, some are completely irrational. Yet highly aware people often treat every thought like an important message. Every concern feels urgent. Every possibility feels significant. Every emotion feels like it needs to be solved immediately. And that's exhausting. Imagine getting a notification every 30 seconds for the rest of your life. Eventually, it wouldn't matter how important the notifications were. You'd be overwhelmed. That's what happens when awareness has no filter. Everything becomes important, which means nothing feels manageable. But then something interesting happens. Many highly aware people reach a point where they become tired. Not physically tired, mentally tired. They've spent years trying to understand everything. Years trying to predict outcomes. Years trying to avoid mistakes. Years trying to find certainty. And eventually they discover something unexpected. The people who seem most at peace aren't the people who understand everything. They're the people who've accepted that they never will. Think about that. What if peace isn't found at the end of understanding? What if peace begins where the search for complete understanding ends? Most people spend their lives believing that one more insight will finally make them feel secure. One more explanation. One more answer. One more realization. But life keeps proving otherwise. Every answer creates new questions. Every certainty eventually becomes uncertain again. Every conclusion reveals another layer. There's no final understanding waiting around the corner. And strangely, that's good news, because it means you can stop chasing it. You can stop treating uncertainty like an enemy. You can stop demanding complete clarity before taking action. You can stop waiting for perfect confidence. The people who move forward aren't the people who eliminate uncertainty. They're the people who learn to walk alongside it. And that's where wisdom begins. Not when you see more, when you know what deserves your attention. Awareness notices everything. Wisdom chooses. Awareness sees every possibility. Wisdom acts anyway. Awareness asks endless questions. Wisdom knows some questions don't need answers. That's the lesson many highly aware people spend years learning. Not every thought deserves your energy. Not every feeling deserves an investigation. Not every possibility deserves your attention. Sometimes a text is just a text. Sometimes a pause is just a pause. Sometimes uncertainty is simply uncertainty. And sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is let life remain unfinished. Because here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to understand everything, you start enjoying life more. The moment you stop chasing certainty, you become freer. The moment you stop analyzing every step, you finally start moving. So if you've always felt different, if you've always felt like your mind notices more than everyone else's, if you've spent years trapped inside endless loops of thinking, there may be nothing wrong with you. You may simply be carrying awareness without direction, and awareness without direction becomes a prison. But awareness guided by wisdom becomes one of the greatest strengths a person can have, because the goal was never to see everything. The goal was to see enough, then live. After all, life isn't happening inside your thoughts. It's happening right now, outside them. And maybe the people who truly understand life aren't the ones who spend forever analyzing the map. Maybe they're the ones who finally put the map down and start walking.